Bueno, reemprendemos la sesión.
We're going to resume.
Caja perfectamente.
This was that Simmons really fits in that profile of a professional that's devoted himself to transmedia. He's been on TV, radio, written press, everywhere. And from each medium, he got some values that allows him to create transmedia content in the company he's working in. And well, you've got the floor.
Hello. I'll be talking about something called liquid stories and dissolving screens today, and it all sounds very futuristic and far out there, which I like. But I will try to keep this 1 hour talk very much on solid ground as well, and not fly out into the stratosphere too much. My name is Simo Staffans, that's me. A friend of mine was kind enough to draw my likeness with a Twitter bird in my hand. I'm a content developer and media strategist from Media City, Finland, and I like those titles because I came up with them myself, which is always a good thing to do, so you can have something nice on your business card. Now, my background is in traditional media. I've done television and radio and been a newspaper journalist, etc., and so on. Worked for the Finnish broadcasting company, YLE, for 7 years. And in 2005, I moved to Media City, Finland, and since then I've been working on trying out new stuff, producing things and researching into how new technology and new ways that the audience behaves affect how we are telling stories. How does social media affect our possibilities and our challenges? How does all new technologies do that, etc., and so on. Now, what I'd like to do is, during this session, talk to you about 5 different but intertwining topics. They all base themselves in the same context. That of a world where the rules of yesterday either no longer apply or are being bent and transformed in such ways that old ways of operating are no longer, well, possible they are, but they are no longer so useful as before. This then is a world where we, with our Stone Age minds, still back at 50,000 years before Christ and trying to escape mammoths, we try to make sense out of everything that is happening around us. And as creators and producers, we try to even make things and produce things that make sense for someone else. And it's a tricky business to be in. I'm going to talk about the importance of stories as a bridge between the now and the then and the future, and how we need to readdress how we approach our audience. I'm also going to be talking about a world filled with devices intended for interaction and used for interaction, but even more filled with the devices not intended for interaction, and how you still can use them for interaction. But I'm going to start with something that I call the possibly impossible. The art of looking past what is possible and instead focus on what is probable, something that I think is quite useful from a producer's point of view. Now, Christy was talking about transmedia and the birth of transmedia and how it all came about to be. Now, cross-media, transmedia, multi-platform storytelling, deep media, the terms are many and in many cases very overlapping. What it's at the heart of them all lies an urge to tell compelling stories over more than one media in ways that engages and immerses the audience and utilize the strengths of each media platform and make them support each other to create and offer the audience a more fulfilling experience. Now, while that's the core of the practices, that's also where many people have a chance of getting a little bit lost. As Christy also mentioned, the joy of seeing all the possibilities that are out there if you think about the transmedia project. But people coming into the field as creators and producers can get a little bit lost there. I've done it myself. For creative, nimble minds, well, perhaps I have one as well, the promises of transmedia storytelling are enticing. In our mind's eye, we can see just how the different parts will line up. We can see how the different media will build on each other, and how the audience will experience something earth-shattering and fulfilling that encourages them to participate, to share onwards, and to agree to loyally follow the story to its inevitable conclusion. The problem, as I found, is that this seldom plays out in exactly the way you've envisioned it. If we make a short film, for instance, or an ad or something like that, we can most often make it just the way we want to make it, budget and other circumstances permitting, of course. But today, many of us want more than just clicks and views and ratings. We're looking to build a community, we're looking to build loyalty, we're looking to interact, to engage, and so we expand what we produce. Now, if we create a transmedia experience that is meant for audience interaction, all these variables then multiply exponentially. We can't be sure that the audience travels the route that we want them to travel. We can't be sure that they experience exactly what we have intended for them to experience, and not in the way that we want them to experience it. And we certainly can't be sure that they interact in the way that we want them to interact. So what to do? I got 3 points and a fourth extra one that I'd like to expand on. The first one is I call prepare for fluidity. Now, rigid has been a mainstay of the media industry in days past. You had your broadcasters with their silos, where the television people never spoke to the radio people didn't speak to the online people, no one spoke to anymore. Rigid. And rigid television production, rigid stuff everywhere. Rigid, for me, is becoming more of a thing of the past, that which doesn't bend is more likely to break instead. For traditional producers of television, for instance, fluidity is the nemesis, the enemy of you, that guarantees that your final product is nothing like the one you actually envisioned from the start. But for instance, the YouTube stars of today, I was listening to Ynon Kreitz from Maker Studios a couple of days back at MIPCOM. They have 55,000 creators, they have 6 billion views per month, etc. It's a lot of content that's being made there. And for these YouTube stars, fluidity is key. If something goes wrong, craps up, and with my video, I shoot anew, or I use this fail to move onwards and forwards in perhaps even a new direction. Everything can be turned into momentum of sorts. And when quality of content is no longer measured only in composition or traditional skill or script writing, but also in engagement and immediacy, that's where fluidity comes into play for me. Of course, I will agree that if you can combine the two, the craft and the skill of a great photographer, a great writer, a great director, a great artist, with the urgency and the fluidity then of today's short-form content producers online, which Maker Studios are doing fairly well as well. So in my mind, that's a golden ticket. The second point that I feel we need to do in our projects, and I need to do in my projects, put down waypoints, goalposts, where we want to go, but have your working crew standing at the ready at any given moment to rush out into the field and move those goalposts as soon as you see your project perhaps being dragged down a new route, adapt to the new situation. Again, the goal that you have should be stated and clear to everyone. That's a given. But as the audience is no longer passive, it's far from passive, and unforeseen circumstances can hijack our project into new directions. We need to adapt to that. If we find ourselves on an unfamiliar path, it's to evaluate the goals and mold them to fit the new direction. And this is where, for me, research comes into play. The more we know about the different parts our projects, can take, and the more we know about the audience that we are trying to go somewhere, make them go somewhere, the better equipped we are when it comes to dealing with new realities. But to be clear, I'm not saying that we should scrap planning projects or having production schedules and distribution strategies and marketing strategies. Those are extremely important, perhaps even more important now than ever. But if and when it does happen, that the audience takes your content to heart and drags it off into a new direction, for me, I think we need to be prepared to use that momentum and embrace that. If the audience has cared so much, for some reason, about what you've done, that they've actually gone away with it and done something of their own with it, that's great, that's brilliant. But it's less about being a traffic police or a roadblock and trying to stop people from going down a not so desired route. It's more about being a shepherd of sorts, trying to get your herd or your flock of, I wouldn't say sheep, but audience members, and try to get them to shepherd them away from the areas where you don't want them to go and gently get them in a more desirable direction. Finally, I think we also need to allow the metrics of today to reflect the complexity of how we work and how we produce. Ratings, as I said, I just came from MIPCOM, and their ratings are still very much the top issue if you try to sell something. But ratings are, of course, far from the only metric that counts. But neither are views on YouTube or clicks on your website. Instead, how do sentiments spread? These soft values. How engaged are the viewers of our content? How lively is the hashtag on Twitter? For how long does our message and our story resonate? What's the long tail like? What kind of spin-offs are initiated? How will it carry over to the next thing? Can we build a community that will support our next series or our next project as well? It's a complex work to analyze, but it's doable as long as you know what you want to look for. And I think metrics should also incorporate some of the fluidity talked about earlier today, that I talked about earlier today. If the project changes direction, so must the metrics. What counts for me is the impression we make, and it's of less importance what kind of impression it really is. Now, a small fourth point. I'm an advocate of the fail fast forward mantra, right? I think that's I believe we need to be prepared to fail and learn from our failings in order to be as fluid as needed when creating something, especially looking at how volatile the audience is today. But the term failing has a lot of negative connotations as well. So I'd like to just quote a Business Insider article I read a couple of weeks back and instead propose that instead of failing fast forward, I think we should be having hypotheses about how our creations should work, that we test out and discard the ones that turn out not to work and move on from there. Fail fast forward, but a little bit more positive. But in order to fail or to succeed, we need to have something to fail or succeed with. Which leads me to my second topic of today, that of stories. Stories shaping the world we're living, and stories being shaped by the world we're living. Now, I think most of us in this room can agree that stories matter in one way or another. And we know what we want to tell, more or less, or we can find out what we want to tell. We know quite a lot about whom we want to tell the stories to. And we have a more or less solid idea of what we want to achieve. And the vehicle that gets us there, from the idea in our mind, to our media channel of choice, and to the minds of our audience, and inevitably, hopefully, to the desired outcome and our desired goal, that's a story. But increasingly, we ourselves are also stories. Part of the stories we want to tell, building the background or the framework our stories are reflected onto or built upon. And that's why it's extremely important to think about all the aspects of your projects and of our projects from a storytelling angle. It's not only the story you're telling people that matters in the long run. It's a story that people tell other people about your project and about you yourself, about the whole experience that they're having. Now, all of this build on each other and support each other to create a universe that our current and future audience take part of. And it means that it's crucial for all of us to think in many dimensions right now about ourselves and about our stories, about the now and all the media platforms that we want to be on, about the then
how our stories should propagate and build on each other and reach new audience through our original audience. And about the how and the why, what tools we want to use, and what tools we want to give our audience so that they can tell our stories onwards. And of course, the fundamental reasons, why are we even doing everything we are doing? That's a good question as well. But for instance, we could do well to take a leaf out of marketing's playbook and start thinking, sorry for the low resolution on this picture. I didn't draw it. It's take a leaf out of marketing's playbook and think about the practice championed by the late Griffin Farley, propagation planning. If on your left you have classical marketing, where you need to reach a lot of people with your message, so that you get them into your brands or your projects or your stories funnel. In the end, most of them won't make it through the funnel, but one or two will be converted to what in marketing is a sale. For us, it's a loyal audience member or whatever. But propagation planning flips the funnel instead. You give the story to one person, you give him a funnel to speak to, the necessary tool and the reason to actually try to reach some other people. So give the people the tools and the story, and they will tell your story onwards. Propagation planning, I encourage everyone to read a little bit about it. If you don't have the stories you need to reach the people that you want to need, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from creating them as long as you stay true to the world that you've built and the rules you've drawn up. And the reason I'm mentioning this, which wasn't in this presentation only a week back, but I was mentoring at this place, the Ciclo Transmedia lab, a couple of weeks back. And a lot of the people there were a lot of people working in tourism, and a lot of people working in the audiovisual industries. And they were about creating stories about Croatia to get more quality tourists to come there. But they were extremely conscious of the fact that they were working with old stories and old legends that couldn't be handled in just any way. They needed to stay true to them, and they felt a little bit constricted by what they could or could not do, which is what we can feel when we work with brands or established television series and so on. We can feel confined by the restrictions that those characters that we are working with, that they put on us. So I showed them a project we worked on last year where we didn't have the stories or the story world we needed at all. So we created them ourselves from scratch. That's Finnish. Energialähettiläs. In English, that's the energy ambassador. Everything sounds very angry in Finnish. I don't know why. This was a project that we got handed a year back, 1.5 years back. The mission was to work with 10 multi-billion energy industry companies in Finland who do innovations and sales all over the world in every area imaginable, from wind power to solar to oil power plants, etc. and so on. To work with them, create a campaign that would unify their stories. Now, these are 10 companies that, to some extent, are competitors as well. So that was a bit of a challenging brief. Now, what we should do was create a campaign that would show these companies' innovations and products in a good light, of course. It should also make skilled engineers and software developers want to come to work for these companies, since they needed more workforce. And it should also appeal to the 15 and 16-year-olds in Finland, so that they would be encouraged to, instead of going into media or some other sexy occupation, they would all be encouraged to go study engineering and software development. Very small brief, very easy to now. So we started to develop stuff around this. So we created actually, these are the companies that we work with, some of them. So we created actually using transmedia storytelling techniques, the story of the people of energy who once a year choose their ambassador to go out into the world and bring the message of energy to all other folks and all other people in the world. And this is a great big honor in our story world, and thousands apply. In reality, we had close to 300 applicants. One was chosen, Pentti Itkonen. Every year this ambassador gets a special assignment. Now, last year, the assignment was called On the Trail of Innovations. So we sent the energy ambassador out into the world to 10 different territories to report back via video and via social media on how the innovations from these companies affected people's lives, the economy, and the environment in these different territories. So he went to a gold mine in Finnish Lapland. He went and did some research into hydropower in Norway. Then he went software solutions in the US, an oil field in the jungles of Ecuador, ship power in Brazil, solar power in Asturias here in Spain, higher education in Thailand, waste-to-energy plants in India, energy converters in China, and opening up new markets in Tunisia. And we got 128 gigabytes of material every Friday that we edited over the weekend and released new videos every week. And he only got the stomach flu once, which was a godsend for us. I'm going to show you a short clip of the Energy Ambassador. This is before he went out on his journey. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's important how this can permeate the society in another way as well. So this is the Energy Ambassador.
Viime vuonna Tuomas Vanhanen valittiin energialähettilääksi. Kiinnostavaa sisäpiirin tietoa. Tänä vuonna
over. And, the reason I showed that was that the guy, the minister who was there, he's now the Prime Minister of Finland, Alexander Stubb, just goes to show that if you have a project that seems to have momentum, the powers that be are all of a sudden extremely interested to be associated with it. So we had good footage of him high-fiving our energy ambassador visiting India, and etc. and so forth. So it's all good. So basically, use the stories you have, and if you have no suitable ones, create. And when you have created them, you need to find a way for them to reach your audience, which brings me to topic number... not yet. Sorry. I missed a slide here. Quickly, what happened with Energy Ambassador. We had 20 videos. Our photographer was quite eager, so 30,000 photos. 300 updates on social media. We had I wrote all the scripts, and then we had a very thorough social media strategy as well. 76,000 views on YouTube is not much during those 10 weeks, even though it was a very niche audience, but 52,000 interactions on Facebook is a lot. And a total of 40 million impressions over the course of 10 weeks, and perhaps most important, the participating companies saw visitor numbers to their websites and job applications skyrocket during this campaign. One of the companies had as many job applications in 2 weeks as they usually have in 2 years. So our customers were also quite happy with the end result. Yeah, so you need to find a way for all of this to reach an audience, and that's topic number 3. Screens, screens, and more screens, and sometimes even no screens. Because right now, there are close to 15 billion things connected to the internet, from space shuttles to coffee machines to your iPhone 6 to the latest Tesla car. That's a lot of things that are connected to the internet. So when we look at the world around us, we need to be conscious of the fact that objects that we look at are often just the front end, the visible element of a far more complex system that is beyond and behind that. And it's constantly there, and it's on all the time. And as creators, as producers, this is a fact that we today need to keep in mind and at the top of our head, at the top of our minds at all time. We can reach people almost everywhere, providing that they agree to be reached, of course, unless we're the NSA or Apple or Google, and then we can reach them even though they don't want to be reached. But that's perhaps not a discussion for today. For us, the only way to have the audience agree to be reached is to make sure that the content we provide is gives them more value than what they would otherwise be doing, whether it's status value, it's monetary value, entertainment value, or something else. At the same time, it's a great responsibility. We're intruding, even if we are invited, we're intruding on people's daily lives and affecting not only them, but also all the innocent people in their surroundings. We don't want people's lives to turn into this. This is an ad, but it's a good one.
Who wants more peas?
Go away.
Oh, Daddy hates pop-up ads.
Made it. Now, at times it's possible to be almost overwhelmed with all the choices we have. Do we want to create a social media campaign on Instagram for our project? Or do we want to publish only on YouTube this time around, or Vimeo? Do we think that we would reach people best by instigating a physical alternate reality game in a set location? Or should we mix it all up and do something someone's never done before? The key is always, as always, lies in research combined with knowing what you actually want to accomplish. But I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how services readily available today for free can be used to create your own solutions for a very specific project. I'm going to start off with a very simple thing that we did a month back in Finland. In Finland, there's a call on, actually, right now for solutions. I think it's a European call, but at least this was the Finnish part of it. It's a call to solutions to foster community spirit, right? And raise awareness of neglected areas in cities in Finland. So we got the assignment to think about how to activate senior citizens on the one part, and get them out of their apartments and get them to use actually smartphones and iPads as well and make them more acquainted with the technology of today. But also to tell the history of a part of our hometown, Vaasa. The place is called Ristinummi, nicely circled there by me. It's long been considered as one of the less affluent parts of the city. It has a strong working class background, and lately it's seen its fair share of immigrants arrive as well. And now our budget was understandably very restrained. So we looked at what available services there were out there that we could take advantage of. So we finally decided to use geocaching as our tool. We partnered up with the city's Institute for Further Education, who agreed to do a multi-language course for senior citizens, how to use iPads and how to geocache. If people are not familiar with geocaching, it has 6 million users. It's based on the geocaching.com website or on an app. And it's about people hiding, so to speak, caches or treasures in different locations around the globe. And then other people using the GPS location and some hints try to find these things. And they can be anywhere. They can be 5 meters up in a tree or submerged in a lake. Most often they're hidden fairly easily to find. But it's a good tool to tell a story. I spent part of a month researching all the aspects of the history of the area, leafing through old records, interviewing people who'd been living there for a while, and the end result was that we had 6 caches spread out in different places of importance. This was actually one of them. Finding the caches meant that you got access to the story of that place. It meant that you got access to different aspects of the history of the area. For instance, the first cache told the story of the first manor to ever be built in that area of the city. Another one told about all the graveyards in the areas, from the old mausoleums from the 18th century to the mass graves of unknown people who died in the famines in the 19th century, and so on. And we also encourage the senior members to avail themselves of the capabilities of their smartphones and their iPads. Each cache was connected to an extra payoff as well. The first cache led you to recipes of meals that had actually been served at that manner in the mid-18th century, whereas the graveyard cache led you to maps like this one, old maps that we had scanned in that described who was buried in all those graves and told the story of those people. And this is also, of course, now everything is long tail. Those caches are going to be there, those stories are going to be there, and those payoffs are going to be there as long as someone maintains them. And as I said, it was very, very cost effective. Here's another example, using a service to tell a unique part of a story. Are you all familiar with Snapchat as a service? Do you know what it is? It's, yeah, you send videos or pictures to each other, and they are available for a set amount of seconds, and then they are deleted, supposedly forever, until some hacker comes along and finds them all, and everyone is suitably embarrassed. Well, you can use Snapchat also for marketing. This is, in May 2014, they reached 82 million monthly active users globally, Snapchat, and they had 700 million photos and videos posted each day. And that was in May, so it's probably even more now. So there's a lot of people looking at how to use that traffic to get their messages across. And this summer, this Hollyoaks, a British teenage soap opera that Rob is, no, I don't know if you're familiar with it. You're the only one from UK here I can think of. So, no, sorry, not David, of course. So they revealed the resolution to a big murder mystery via their official Snapchat account to their hundreds of thousands of followers. They showed some snapshots of a flashback scene where it had been filmed, and they were showing one character shooting another. So it was a resolution to a murder mystery. Now, as these clips are deleted within seconds, this photo sharing application is an interesting way to post spoilers, because no one can share them because they're gone in a couple of seconds. You can tell it onwards, but you can't just share it easily. And it makes all the content appear much more valuable. If you blink it, you'll miss it. Here's another example. In New Zealand, the broadcaster doing The Walking Dead, if you're familiar with that, the zombie series, yeah? They decided to use the dating application Tinder to reach their fans in a new way in the launch before season 4. And here's what they did.
To celebrate our new season launch of Walking Dead, TV2 decided to give young men a romantic encounter they wouldn't.
But there we are. And finally, one of my favorite examples from last year in Bristol. You've probably seen this one, I think, but it's a great example. If you're familiar with last year, Bristol had a call out to make their city playable, and the ones who won it were this project called hello lamppost. Your post box and have them actually learn something themselves from the conversation and pass that knowledge onwards, that's a pretty good place to be in. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, sorry. But then we have everything in place. We have the screens, we have the solutions, we have the principles, we have everything we want to do. Now all we need is an audience. But the audience, then again, brings me to my fourth topic of today. The entity formerly known as the audience. I've been talking about the audience. It's not really the audience anymore. It's moving perhaps back in time. It's moving back into something it was several hundreds of years ago. This is a Shakespearean theatre. It probably looked like something like this. And this audience here was a very active member of everything that happened there. If they liked an actor, they gave him or her good advice. They cheered on that person. If they disliked an actor, they booed and hissed and threw food at the person. Instant feedback, something we all could use from time to time. Then the audience gradually turned into this. Fairly passive recipients of the content that content producers provide them with and that they take to heart and enjoy, and that's about it. But this is the world today, and it's crazy. It's 1 second I'm laughing at some guy falling off his yacht in Tibet, and the next day I'm debating whether Ben Affleck is a good new Batman or not, etc. It's increasingly we're seeing a symbiotic partnership, and this is the reason for it. It's a world where everyone who is connected to this world is a producer themselves in one form or another. As you produce content for online or television, as we produce content, other people produce content about us and our content. Your audience produce blog posts, vines, social media comments, YouTube videos about what we do. And this makes it extremely important to keep audience participation strategies in mind while developing. I've got 5 things and 5 principles I'd like to share with you. The first one is such a no-brainer that I'm a little bit reluctant to have it in the slide, but at the same time it's the one thing that many people still get wrong. And it's such a crucial part of the project that everyone needs to really take it to heart. Don't go for a huge audience. Find a niche that you want to target. Find the core within that niche that you want to engage and that will spread your message to the rest of the niche. If you get enough traction within that niche, you're sure to reach a bigger audience after that. But try stuff out, draw the right conclusions. Secondly, celebrate others, promote others. You might think that you and your content are, we and our content is at the heart of what we're working at, but that's wrong. Without an audience, everything we do is pretty meaningless. So I think we need to make sure that we really celebrate all the people choosing to engage in our content and to promote others. To actually not just be standing on a like me now, standing talking to you, but actually inviting, actually going out to your blogs and commenting on your stuff and having a promoting other people and supporting other people, so that they in turn will be positively promoting you. And also I've failed on this a couple of times, and the backlash has been severe. If you give a promise to your audience, be sure to keep it. You sign a contract when you start delivering something. The audience part of the contract is that they will accept to take part of what you're giving them. Your part of the contract is that you will uphold the quality and you will follow the story. You will give them what you say you're going to give them. So deliver the quality your audience has been promised, and continue to deliver the same standard that they've been accustomed to. Don't let it slide in any which way. And also I find that working on your timing is key to audience participation strategies. There's so many tools there right now that can help you find out when you should publish stuff, when you will resonate the best with the target audience that you're trying to reach. So we need to plan our strategies well, but, as I said, be prepared to change them as well if analysis shows that the project is not playing out in the way you intended. And finally, perhaps most important today, be yourself. If it's a small project, you're probably leading with yourself. If it's a big project, it's a project's self you need to stay true to. Don't try to be something that you're not, or that your project is not. It won't get in the way of meaningful communication. That's what we're all aiming for in one way or another. Communication that is meaningful for you as well as for your counterpart. But when it comes to addressing an audience, I have to leave the final word to a person who really knew what the audience was all about. The late, great Orson Welles on the audience, here from the Dinah Shore show in the late 70s.
I'll have to make a tiny little speech about this.
Please do.
Tiny, little tiny one.
But it's very good.
Because, you see, audience...
Yeah. And then, when you have all this in place, the final question, how to make a living out of all of this? And this will be my fifth and last topic of today, namely, that cash, where does it come from? This is probably the question that is on everyone's mind who is, to some extent, who is in this industry. With the world heading in the direction it is, and with the metrics changing shape and value, with a volatile and increasingly scaringly independent audience confronting us, can we take all the things that we learned so far today into consideration and still make a decent living out of creating content? Yes, but it all comes back to the content, which has to be great. This is the formula. And the second point up there is obviously the tricky part. I'll tell you about a couple of examples. One we did ourselves, where we financed it without an input from the audience, and one that came from a totally different angle, where the audience is the main part of the financing. Our example is called the Mill Sessions. We did it a couple of years back in Finland. It was a show centered on music, Our task was to try to... Music videos in Finland back at the time was there were no money to make music videos or music shows, so the quality was atrocious, and we wanted to raise the quality of actually producing audio-visual content for music in Finland. So we wanted to look at new ways of financing it and try to find out how can we produce something and still have a good sized budget for it. We also wanted to try to build a community from scratch on social media without any marketing budget at all. So that's where we came from. Now we created the story of an old mill on the west coast of Finland where a group of friends got together and started to build a television studio, as you do with your friends, if you find an old mill. And you invite people from top artists in Finland to come there and for one day forget everything about the world outside and just concentrate on music for one day. And I'll show you a trailer for it, and then I'll tell you how we financed it and what we did.
What is great music? Who are the people creating the tunes and melodies that make our
was the mill sessions.
The mill sessions. It's music for real.
Yeah. So that was the mill sessions. But how we did it was, since we had created such a huge backstory, where many of us were actually characters. We were like semi-us and semi-characters. So it was a bit of a... getting up in the morning meant that you had to think about what hat to put on. Like, I wish... But it was interesting. And doing all that meant that we had shot so much material that we could cut a 40-minute HD version that we sold to a telecom operator for their IPTV VOD and got premium payment for that. Then we had the standard definition service that we sold to a free-to-air television. Then we sold the Blu-ray and the DVD rights to a publisher, and then we cut music videos from the artists and actually sold them back as promotion material to the record labels. And then we had some sponsors in to cover the rest. But all in all, we had a sizable budget, better than any music show I had in Finland for years, which was nice. That was the show where we, the example where you got money in from not the audience but from other parts. This is the example where you look to the audience. I'll show a short clip of this one, as you are most probably very aware of. Pemberley Digital, who did Lizzie Bennet Diaries, they've done Emma Approved, they're now doing Frankenstein, MD, with Mary Shelley's doctor is now Vicky, fresh out of med school, and they are repurposing old books and old classics. Just a short clip from Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
It is universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune
going to have some questions and answers as well. But what they do, they have so many viewers on YouTube, millions and millions and millions. So they make money in these different 5 ways that all tie into the audience. First off, YouTube ads, quite natural. You have views on YouTube, you can cash in on the ads with the YouTube's partnership program. They also have merchandise. They have spin-off videos, but they also have mugs and posters and a lot of other merchandise that people who like the show can buy. They also have affiliate marketing, which is quite intelligent to do. Since for instance, Lizzie Bennet Diaries, her older sister is working at a fashion company and runs a fashion Tumblr and has a fashion Twitter account, etc. And all the clothes that she wears on these accounts and shows on this Tumblr can be bought actually via the Tumblr and from the store itself. And then Pemberley get money out of that. And funnily enough, all the Lizzie Bennet Diaries videos are available to watch on YouTube. Still, they've sold 7,000 copies of the DVD of Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which is neat. It just goes to show that people still actually want to own stuff and not just have everything up in the cloud. And even more funny, they also made a book deal with Simon & Schuster, who have published a novelization called The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet, which retells the series as journal entries. So you have a classic book that was made into a YouTube series of videos that now has been made into a book. Inception. The conclusion I think that we all need to take from this is we need to think along several different angles today. We need to think about long term. How can we earn money from our content in the long run in different ways? But we also need to think multi-platform. How can different media platforms support each other, not only in a storytelling sense, but also in a financing sense? And the key, of course, is to get all of this to add up. Finally, I don't think there's a coffee break after me, but there's a coffee on the screen, so you'll have that at least. I'd just like to end with something I firmly believe in and that I hope that you all perhaps will agree with me on. We're all creative people in one way or another. We can all try to tell stories, try to find new ways to coexist with the audience and new financing models. And what I would like for all of us to agree on today is this. Let's create great stories, set them in great settings, carve out a role for the audience in the overall narrative, and give them clear calls to action with a guaranteed celebration of recognition for anyone choosing to interact. If we can do that, I think we'll be just fine. Thank you.
I think that we almost run out of time, so we have only time for a couple of questions, and then we go on.
I'm around today, so come tap me on the shoulder and say nice things to me. Okay?
Lo voy a hacer en castellano.
I'll do this in Spanish. So, Samuel, you just came from Cannes. You know, well, the big TVs, Midcom and Big TV, and the big companies that work there.
I was trying to keep up. I heard Midcom, and I was like, yeah,
no problem.
this will go down well.
Again. So you're coming from Cannes, so
yes.
You know very well what is happening. The big companies attend, big and small
celebrity
companies.
pole dancing.
Exactly. So MIPCOM, MIPTV, MIPQ, well, you know, things are moving a lot. The big companies are trying to get, I mean, not to lose the rhythm, but they see how the indies and small companies are moving faster, are much more agile and open. So how do you think those big events like MIPCOM will be evolving in the next years?
I think they will be, I mean, right now what they're doing is putting a lot of focus on YouTube creators and people like this who are, in a sense, competitors to the television industry, but in a sense they're on a little bit of a different angle as well. So I think that all of these markets will evolve more and more into cross-media, multi-platform, since that's where all the production is going anyway. So it just makes sense to incorporate it even more. But I mean, for instance, you could hear the collective sigh amongst the 500 people in the Grand Auditorium in the Palais de Festival when Inon Kreitz from Maker Studios revealed that the managing director of Oreos, who is it called that? The big media strategy company handles many billions of dollars of brand money, have told all their clients like Visa, etc., to put 25% of their television ad money into online. So everyone was like, "Oh no, he's eating our lunch." That's serious, yeah. So I think everything is moving there. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. I will put on another presentation. Thank you. You were a great audience.
Así que muchas gracias, Simón. Simón me dijo que su nombre se pronuncia Simón.
Simon told me that it was pronounced as Simon, and I'm going to take the place of Monte Carlo today. We're going to have a roundtable later with Tony Marin, with Paco Asensi, and Christy, and Simon Stephens. And we thought it could be interesting for Paco and Tony to talk about the job a bit. So we've given them some time to make a brief presentation. Simon, please stay with me.
Thank you. Así que voy a...
So I'm going to now give the floor to Paco Asensi. He started in the internet in 1991. I don't know how old you are, but I remember I still had a modem. Those who made the sound ding 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 ding, and then called the phone number. If you were lucky, you were able to download some image in about 20 minutes. Well, Paco was there already, and he was one of the people who pushed the internet channel for the Spanish television. Today he's in the mall Beyond, and I'm going to ask you what Beyond is and all this stuff. So thank you, Paco. No microphone, sorry. Well, I believe I'm going to... In fact, many of the things that I'm going to be said has been covered already in a great way. And I think Christy and Simon did a great job. So I'm going to be quite fast. I'm going to concentrate on everything that has to do with the evolution of the media we use today to tell stories, and What's the presentation? Not here? Can you see my presentation on screen? No. No. I'm doing something wrong here. I'm also an expert in using new technologies and PowerPoints and PPTs, and besides doing many things in the internet. Well, I'm going to focus. I'm going to be extremely fast, so we have enough time to open a debate and roundtable. I guess that's what's interesting. I don't know how many presentations you've seen today, starting with something like this, with a sort of a cave painting. Well, I'm going to do the same thing. The truth is that I'm going to focus really. Well, because in the presentation that's done like this, they normally talk about storytelling and the humankind trying to give something to the future generations. And I'm actually going to focus on the media and the medium. It seems that humanity has always found a way, a channel, to tell stories. In that case, they were using pigments coming from flowers and plants, and they painted on caves, on rocks. But since they have a medium, not just speaking, not just the oral medium, they start telling stories, and they start using those media that are present in nature. And well, humanity is about this. According to this report published early in the year by We Are Social, the internet global penetration was about 35%. And 20% in the social networks, above 20% in social networks, and mobile networks penetration is 93%. So I mean, almost everybody, according to this information, carries a mobile device with us that allows us to be connected. And for this kind of humankind, is for the one that we have to develop media to tell stories. And we've got Aristotle. He said that man is a political animal, but they were debating about the meaning of this sentence, but it seems that it has to do with the fact that either you are in the polis, you're there in the jungle, in the city, or you're not a human. And I was I'm changing it with this thing on the penetration. So in the you have to be in the polis, in the city, but connected besides that, because it seems it's something essential for what we are, and that brought us to digitalization, massive digitalization that has reached every target audience. And obviously it's different for if you were born in an environment in which digitalization is natural, or if we are being digitalized, like this old person here on the photograph, and she's using a tablet, and tablets have a great impact on the elderly because it's easy, they're easy to use. But kids try to use them, as you can see here in this image. They try to use TV screens as if they were a huge tablet, because that's what they are, the tactile generation. It seems that everything has to move and be touchy and respond to movement. And this is what we have today. These are things that you probably know about, and you probably lived them. What used to be the living room, it was to be family life. Your home was there, fire was there, and it would transform into a TV. It used to be a new fireplace. And the truth is that now each individual in the family has a different experience in terms of that content, a different experience that's different according to the device they're using or what they're interacting with. There's an example of how this or the medium that we're using today. This is probably a classical example of classical transmedia, like what Christian Simmons mentioned earlier. It's Isabel. It's a TV series here in Spain. It's watched by about 2.5 million views, and it's produced by one of the Endemol, by Diagonal, with Telefónica. We're here, so it's great to talk about this TV series here. And to tell the story in different ways, for example, and this is that's thanks to the Spanish television. Besides the series, there's a web that's telling the same stories from the non-fictional side. I mean, given the fact that there are facts behind the TV series, we can play with fiction and non-fiction, and that's one of the pathways we can explore. I think it's quite interesting, and in fact you can leave that non-fiction can be seen from the viewpoint of those who were conquering Granada, or from the viewpoint of those who were being conquered. So you the user can choose both ways, or both views from a historical perspective. And then obviously second screen applications. We are watching TV and we've got several devices around us. Those devices allow us to interact with the TV screen. We might have historical facts from the fictional side or from the non-fiction. So which actors are participating in that scene, where that specific part of the TV series was filmed. So we've got a parallel narrative. And as Christy was saying, commoditizing everything. That's what she was saying. Everything is a commodity. And all the products around the launch of a TV series like Isabel. So we've got books written by the author himself, or the author of the Isabel concept, Tanto Monta, which is a very interesting concept, because there's audiovisual content, and probably the actors or the members or the staff give or the crew show how they participate, and then all the fans, because you can see a group of fans there that are extremely excited with the Isabel thingy, and it turned out that they existed, but they existed there. Well, communities that met once a year in Segovia to enact what's going on there, like Game of Thrones, but with a non-fictional thing, and that community existed actually, and this series allowed the different communities of fans to interact with each other, and it gave them, it created that fan phenomenon with a story that is non-fictional, or it's fiction based on real facts. So where they created maps of the characters to be able to follow different relationships, and we've also got, we've fostered exhibitions. I mean, those objects existed obviously before the TV series, but they're exhibitions that blend fiction and non-fiction. And there's been a tour around Spain. There were historical objects next to maybe the costumes they used in the TV series, and even the government of Castilla y León, a part here in Spain, they fostered a tour around the places where they were filming the TV series. And well, this probably covers what used to what's traditionally known as a transmedia or transmediafied story. But of course, there are different devices, like the reef or the grassland. In the video, that was quite funny actually. But the truth is that these devices could get you closer, give you a better or different experience, because we've got that desire of the audience, not everybody probably, but those who really like the content, they want to be part of the story itself.
Ya se ha creado la primera película, se llama Zero Point, no sé si habéis oído hablar de ella. En cualquier caso os voy a poner un vídeo que no es el tráiler de la propia película, lo podéis ver en YouTube, está ahí el tráiler, pero que me parecía interesante porque sí que cuenta un poco esa filosofía.
This is a video we have for the new development we have, so it's on the screen, please enjoy it.
Basically a lot like a pair of ski goggles that you're wearing. Everyone really needs a hat station to be really into this. The Oculus Rift is just one screen, but there are two lenses.
Virtual reality is three things: graphing your physical movements, redrawing a scene based on those movements. So if I turn my head this way, you draw what's over there, and then sending new perceptual information to the eyes and the ears.
What is the future of collaboration and communication? Really, what's the future of humanity as we move forward with all of these virtual technologies? It's very difficult to explain to people what the Rift is like, because there's really nothing else out there like it, and it's such a hard thing to grasp. And so people who try the Rift, so often they say, oh, now I actually get this. I get what VR is and what this could mean for everything. really what it's about, the ability. I mean, it's green flying, right? Everything.
Ya está ahí, solo quería hasta que saliese el dron.
So that's it. I just wanted you to see this before moving on to the next point. The next point is on the consumption drones. The consumption drones has led us to have these kind of festivals. The AR Drone Film Festival was launched a couple of years ago, and this year there's going to be the New York City Drone Film Festival. It's about films filmed with drones. I'm going to show you one of the films presented to the festival, and it was organized by Parrot, and it's just to show you how you use this kind of device for new storytelling. With this new device and new functions and new personalities as well.
Bueno, ahí entran ya, ¿no? las imágenes grabadas por el...
And these are the images shot by the drone itself, and a very funny song, very funny music, because they make everything really funny over there, actually. And in the current times, wearable devices have been spread all over, and they are among us already, and they give us new possibilities to narrate. We can tell stories from the point of view of the biometrics, for instance, and we can integrate this at the core of the story. So we're using new devices, but using new devices is nothing new. We have been using new things since the animatronics. Remember Shark, Jaws? It was just a robot, and the robot itself was the main character of the film. He was killed at the end, but he was the main character. So robots are integrating the storytelling, and this is ISOI. It's made in Spain, in Alicante, and it's already taking part in pieces of theatre. It's very easy to program because it uses artificial intelligence that can be understood by children, and it gives us a different model of answer depending on the scenario it's on. So we can imagine a possible scenario where the control of this robot can be handed to someone in the audience. So people in the audience are actually taking part in the story through the robot, and the robot would be representing or embodying the person in the audience, and this is adding on to telepresence or remote presence, and we can include or use this remote presence for our narration. I don't know whether you keep up with Big Brother, but on Big Brother 15 we are generating biometric data of each of the participants, and we get all the information from a wristband. With all this information we can reach, we send it to the audience, so they have different information they wouldn't otherwise know about. And we have also given a small role to this drone. This one can't fly, but it's got a role. So from time to time he's on the show, and he's on other programs related to Big Brother, and sometimes it just flies into the house, or it rolls into the house, and it shoots images, and it has a major role. So that was it. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Paco.
Thank you, Paco. I have to say that for the first time in my life, I've seen someone finishing a presentation before the scheduled time. This is amazing. I was timing it, and you made it. So if someone has a question, any questions, please, this is the right time for it. I've just realized, I've just seen that we are being watched from Bogota. So greetings to South America. I'm really excited that we are being watched on streaming from so far. So if you have any questions for all the people who are in other places watching from streaming, if you have any questions, please send them over, and I hope someone will read them and we can answer them. So Luis, your turn. Come over here. Tony is very experienced in animation, and he's the author of a documentary called Bicycle, Spoon, Apple. So if anyone dares, please ask him where does the title come from. This documentary is on Pascal Maragall, a former mayor of Barcelona, and who's suffering from Alzheimer. Please, Tony, tell us about it. Good morning. Thank you for such a nice presentation. Before anything, I would like to congratulate the people who are watching us from Bogota, because precisely in Colombia many interesting things are going on. They are developing very interesting projects, and I was there when launching this documentary along with some friends. So I won't be so academic, even if I also teach at university, at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. I teach at the Master of Audiovisual Design, and I also teach in other masters. But just to focus on what we are telling today, I'll just tell you that part of the audience here today are students, and there is also part of you, some of you are professionals. So I just wanted to advance some things to throw into the round table. Christy, Simon, and talked about interesting topic you know about, because most of the people here know about these things, and you probably all know about Doctor Who and other shows that already back then talked about seriality and all the aspects we have been using to further develop transmedia and multi-platforms. So regarding the transmedia at a global level, I think that we still have some doubts on some notions on what is exactly transmedia. So many people are wondering what kind of strategies can we use, for productions or for this production, distribution or communication for the modern societies. I'm not going to get into the details of the definitions because there are lots of them, but if you don't know much about this topic, I'll tell you that we could talk about attitudes and innovation processes, and we could talk about transmedia settings or transmedia processes, and we would need a definition on interrationality and creation, both virtual and actual. Obviously, these environments, or our enabling environment, is seen on these events you have on the slides. There are many fora and conferences and many settings where all this is discussed. So we're in the midst of a global communication environment. There are also professionals and scholars, moguls and people, and daring people, very brave, daring people, like myself and other people who have been working with other media. I was working on in the television industry, and then I moved on to transmedia and multi-platforms. So currently, there are many people working in this field. Many of them, some of them are here in this room. I can tell by looking at some faces. And this is not only happening in the US and Europe. It's going on in Africa, in Asia, in South America. All over the place, research is being done at a professional and a scholar level. And you have some names on the slides. Probably you can read your own name on the slide. Well, this roundtable is going to be about what has been going on with traditional media and the current media, and more modern media. We should be able to rename the new technologies, because they are not that new after all. We know them, we've known them for many years. It's not new technology, it's just the technology, and it's the current technology we have right now. So if you talk about new technologies to children, they won't know what you're talking about, because for them it's just technology. So this technology allows us to be more inclusive, to participate in this journey and to dive into it. The new devices allow us to do very different actions and to make everything more inclusive. People get involved and they can participate. Sometimes they can participate in a more active way than than other times. We also need to mention the possibility to sit down as a user, the possibility to feel yourself you're a user, and as a user you take part in this in a very different way. I'm going to skip a couple of slides. Because we all know what this is about, we all know about this definition. But anyway, I want to highlight that this is these are contents with a high narration potential, and it's based on an original proposal, on an original idea. Simon and Christy talked about the stories, and the stories are the cornerstone of all this. We consume stories, we create stories, we feel curiosity, we like to tell stories, we like to brag, we like to talk to anyone on the street, we like we even like to gossip. What do you know that I don't know? Tell me about the things I don't know. This is what transmedia is all about. We want other people to tell us what they know, because we feel we're curious. So this is a very old thing. This is a very old story. But the new thing here is that we have new proposals, new technology, and new ways of telling these very same old stories. We can create new worlds. We can enter those worlds. We can participate. We can co-create. And your call. You can do anything with it. We can be anything we want. We are not going to be just a passive audience. A new idea that's been researched by Transmedia is branding and publicity. What happens when we use Transmedia in the world of publicity and brands? This is very interesting, and Simon already told us about it. He explained a very interesting case. I think all of you know that these transmedia proposals can really add a lot of value to the to branding, and it can boost branding. Brands owned by fan clubs or fan communities can grow much better, and the contents for them can be much wider, and we can create lots of new content. So we're not just users, we're also we are consumers and we are producers. So we are prosumers, we are proactive consumers, and we are also producers. We need to take into account all the different perspectives, because now we have different approaches. And the investments approach is also something we are going to take into account as well, because we need to take into account different approaches. We need to deal with co-creators, we need to deal with message senders, script writers, many people. And all these people add value, and this is the perfect climate for new ideas. I'm not going to talk about the business model because, well, anyway, many of you know a lot about this, so I'm not going to go back to this. About sustainability, return, funding, audience. We already heard a lot about the audience and promotion. If you have the time, you can get into the website and read all the details. Like I said, the success of our success can be capitalized, and this is something we were really concerned about. We wanted to get money back. We wanted to get investments back, and you want to help your brand, and you want to boost it. There was a Spanish production called the Three Sisters. It was a show, a multi-platform show, because we explored all of the platforms available for us back then. And transmedia, there was a lot of transmedia in it. We mixed real images and animation and many other things. And it was originally a multi-platform project with excellent commercial possibilities. We created some video games. We didn't have apps back then, but we created many other things around this show. It growed and it made the brand more important. Anything we launched into the market was already good, well branded, so we could get some returns in terms, not only in financial terms, but also in terms of importance. We had lots of importance returns. Transfuture. What do we have? What's in store for us? What's waiting in the future? Well, the discussion is open. We are hearing many things about it. Many very qualified people are discussing on how the transmedia will develop in the future. We need to push it. We should suggest another different word, because I don't really like transmedia, but anyway, it will, call it the way you want, but it will still exist in the future, and it will be more and more present. We will feel more and more the need to have different media converging and having different stories being shared from different angles, from different point of views or approaches. So very briefly, I'll just give you some proposals I would like to talk about in the round table. And this is the stories. We're going to discuss the multi-platform narration and active consumption. And I want to show you some examples, some very recent examples we've worked with lately. We worked with some advisors in Latin America, in Colombia, in Santiago in Chile, Peru, and I gathered some examples. I put them together, and this is why I want to show you now. I want to show you different ways to use the tools in order to create, to raise awareness, to talk about current concerns for society, such as, I don't know, unemployment, social issues, history, historical problems, city problems. In Latin America, these topics are main issues for the transmedia productions. There are very interesting projects in Cali, in Colombia, on transmedia projects. So this story changes the kind of consumption we make out of it. It can turn passive consumption into active consumption, but it depends on the type of stories we tell. When we talk about television or audiovisuals or cinema, and if we consider it something that is packed and unchangeable, because we used to think that everything on TV was fake, and everything is ready-made, and everything is fiction, because you cannot do anything without you cannot really check whether that's true or not. You cannot ask or anything. This is a ready product you get, and that's it. And fluidity, this fluid aspect is not there anymore. It was just packed and passive. The people who used to be just watchers, people used to watch, and that was it. But now we are not watchers, we are users. And this has changed our way of telling stories. From theatre through cinema, through TV, through shows, through other stories, we've seen how everything is changing, and it's being replaced by new ways of telling stories that allow us for interaction. We don't want this ready product. We don't want canned food. We want fresh food. We want things we can play with. We want food we can cook ourselves, not just canned food. Not everything can be interactive, and we don't always want to be interactive all day long. Sometimes we just need to get contents, and we want to get them in a passive way. It's not most of the times, but sometimes we do need that. And other times we want to WhatsApp our friends, and we want to text them, we want to use different platforms to communicate. But, like I say, sometimes we do need to be just watchers. And to finish off, I will say that something that makes us different is that we are here, we are attending an event. And this event is unique, and it's got a value, and it's irreplaceable. Because you're here, and you're seeing things as they unfold. It is not. You can be here, and you can interact, and you can add value to the contents and to the whole thing. Here is a couple of examples. I want to show you some shooting we had a few years ago. You can watch it online if you want. It's called Arena Life project on motor races, and there you can have a real-time competition in real time with the motor races, the real ones. So you can race with an avatar. You can take part. You can virtually take part in the actual race. So there is a lot of video gaming here, and animation and interaction with the users. This was created by the Digitalent Foundation, Digitalent Trust Fund. Was made by Digitalent. And this is quite complex because we needed to use geopositioning, which is not always easy to get because of privacy issues. So we're still working on it, and I think this is very interesting. It's just a pity we cannot watch it right now. This event is about a story in real time, and you can watch it online. Probably some of you know it already. It's very interesting because you're suffering for the people in the movie. And these two here are the two projects I wanted to show you, although I can't get in there. This one for Cuatro Ríos, 4 Rivers, is on the Colombian history, and this one is it's a comic strip, animation product. It's split in 4 stories regarding 4 different massacres that happened in Colombia some years ago. The second one is called En Búsqueda, Searching. It happens in Bogotá. And it was recently created to explore new sci-fi elements and new urban situations. Through an e-book and all the tools, you try to find out what a corporation is doing, and this corporation is called Private Interests, to keep working in Bogotá.
Well, it's actually great, and it shows how people in Colombia are willing to push some transmedia and collaborative narrative ideas. And I don't know if we'll be able to watch it later. I don't know if there's enough time. No? Well, and that's it? No more time? Well, then, that's it. That's my presentation, and thank you. I've got a mic already, so yes. Well, thank you, Tony. You're always short and concise and straight to the point. I've been listening to you, and I've got a huge dilemma. I don't know whether to speak English or Spanish. And if you see that I turn my head and I look at Christy and start speaking English, well, I'm sorry, but it just comes out natural. So.
Bit of Spanish and English, I can't help myself there. Yes. Yes? Is that stereo now? Yes. That's funny. Okay, cool. He estado escuchando toda la mañana.
I've been listening to, well, the whole morning. I don't know, what you learned from it or what you got from it. I think we've seen lots of definitions about what transmedia is and has been throughout the years. That was quite clear. I mean, it is clear that we still don't know what it is. We're still giving definitions for it, and we've given some examples. We even talked about where the money is, and that's always a question that appeals us a great deal. And I would like to go back to one of the last things Sonny mentioned. I personally believe that sharing stories is at the base of the Maslow pyramid. It's one of the human needs. And my first question for you is: do you think that is true? And how has technology changed that need?
Por favor.
Should I start? Please, Paco, go ahead. And well, of course, there was a character in one of the Patrick Rock books, and he was saying, "Well, we are the story we tell ourselves, and if you have no story to tell yourself, you're just not. You're nothing." So it's part of the human identity to tell us stories. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell others, and exchanging stories. I mean, that's key. It's part of the essence of human beings. And as I was saying beforehand, technology changed the media through which we tell the stories, but the stories we are told at a professional level, I mean, creators, it allows those creators to use different tools to give to take the stories to depths that were unknown before these technologies, because we've always told stories, and even some audience participation was there. I mean, that's probably not new, but being able to co-create thanks to technology, that wasn't that easy before this technology was born. That's something that was born in our time, and we still have to see how it evolves and where that's going to take us. So we're a bit in the midst of the process. Yes, we still don't know in which part of the process we're at. Of course, I mean, we are in the beginning, but well, we just to say we have to get adapted to technology. I remember that. I mean, we in the 90s and the internet and such and so. I mean, and it's actually the other way around. I mean, now we are faster. We are the ones who are moderating the technology that we need, because as a species, the missions made a huge leap. I mean, we see that we can do a lot more than we are doing, and we want that technology to accompany us. But at an intellectual level, we're probably going faster than technology.
Is technology leading the way, or are we leading the way and asking things from our technology? What do you think?
Gosh. Just with the first question about stories, for me, it's more about connection, and so verbal connection, or connection via a book or another media or something like that, but connection in person, connection with sex, that's not necessarily a story, but there's a connection there. And the reason why I say that is because things like play, and the game mode is as a pervasive force now as storytelling. And so I don't think, I don't think it's about one particular mode being the only way that we come together. And so doing the typical transmedia device of seeing what unifies all of these things together, it's positive that's probably more about connection in some way. But whether we lead technology or technology leads us, it's yes, that's a complex question, but technology is a result of humans and what humans do, and we have and it's usually in response to something else, just like everything we do. It's in a response, and so I don't think technology leads us in that way, because we create according to the paradigms of the way we understand the world and the way that we think we should be interacting with each other. And this is why one of the issues with robotics and artificial intelligence, there's this huge debate about whether about the fact that robots can turn around and take over the world. And for me, it gets back to a question of, well, then don't create robots that can do that, or But I mean, it's not as simple as that. But basically, the idea that we put our understanding of the way the world operates into what we create. So I think it's, in that case, it's very sort of human-led. And the way that we're behind, we're driven by technology is because there's software out there and there's hardware that defines the way that we have to use it. You have to press this before you do this. You have to say these particular words. There's a constraint of 140 characters, or there's a constraint of, as interactive storytellers, finding software that represents the way your mind works so you can communicate it to others is incredibly difficult and almost impossible. And so then it's driving us. Then it's actually, controlling us. But once again,
I'm sort of imagining the headlines tomorrow in El País. Christy Dana says, "Don't produce robots that can take over the world." Just don't do it. Just don't do it. But it's an interesting point.
No,
Well, I was saying that, curiosity is what brings us there, and what moves us and drives us, and that's what Chris was saying. Curiosity makes us watch and find what we need in a daily basis, what we need to be happier, faster, more our own, more specific, more whatever. And that's when there's a need. But I think it's curiosity. That's when technology is born. So it is the human factor, that precedes technology in that sense, because we are in that search, or we're trying to improve our communication, our relational world, and that's when that application is born, or that new invention, or that technology is born. But I think that, it's not only my opinion, big experts have said it, but in our closer environment, I get what's in Catalan, I'm sorry, but wanting to look and investigate and sniff around. That's what takes us to the point of finding new technologies, I believe. May I say something, please? That's the case, but that's the case now. There used to be a time in which it seemed that technology was doing its own thing. And it's something that I really like saying. But we talk about how stories are influencing technology. Some people talk about the invisible impact of science fiction in technological development. Physicists and technology experts are looking at science fiction. One of the experts, one of the founders of artificial intelligence, was saying how important Susie Clark was in his work. But I'm also very interested on how that technology that is always with us is the source of stories. Maybe you know the project, but a couple of years ago, Power to the Pixel, it was a very curious project that had to do with, those containers where you left your old mobile. Someone thought about turning them on, and there were hundreds and hundreds of them, of old mobiles, and no smartphone or anything. I don't know if they had SMS or some SMS on there, and there was a source of information to get started with that lost SMS. And I thought that was amazing. All the trays were living, that digital footprint. I don't know how we want to call it, but it's becoming a source of new stories thanks to technology itself. Okay, what you said about science fiction is interesting, because then you've got someone like William Gibson. He publicly said how difficult it is for him to invent the future, imagining a future and how it's going to be in terms of technology, because we are really advanced. In the 50s it was great, but now it's harder to do so. Simons.
Regarding whether we lead technology or technology leads us, I would like to answer yes. And not go further into that, since it's a bog field of God. I'll stay out of it. I'll do what I have to do to get my stories across, because as I said, I do think stories matter a lot to a lot of entities, organizations, companies that perhaps haven't thought about stories in that sense before. Jerome Brunet did some research for his book Actual Minds, Possible Worlds, where he came to the conclusion that stories, people remember facts 22 times better if they're told in the form of a story than as statistics and bullet points. So if I can get something across 22 times more efficiently, I'm going to use that route. Yes. Also, I've noticed that you know those people you meet at big markets and conferences that change titles every second year. So 6 years ago, most of them were interactive TV producers. 4 years ago, they were user-generated content experts. 2 years ago, I think they were cross-media producers. Now most of them are storytellers. So it's not a bad job position to be in at the market either. It's good. Good for the students here to take into consideration.
So you've noticed. Si alguien quiere hacer una pregunta.
If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and do so. I mean, we're just talking as if we were in a pub because we're used to it, but if there's a question from Twitter or from the back channel, that'll be great.
Hola, hablo en nombre de José Ignacio.
I'm talking on behalf of José Antonio Galán. He's sending a tweet. And he'll be here on Friday, but if you don't know him, you have a taste of his taste. On your, he's quoting Mark Lucan, and he's asking if this is not autopoiesis. If we have not generated a system that just fits itself, it generates its own stories and consumes its own stories, and we're a bit closed upon our own selves. It's not my words, it's José Ignacio. I'm suffering. I don't know if translators were able to say that. Did you get it?
Themselves?
Yes.
He asked for, if we, as Lucan said, we are living in an autopoiesis, so we tell stories and then we consume the stories, and it's like a
loop.
Cycle.
Yep. And I guess, well, I mean, riffing off that, there's the other thought that stories that exist without us being a part of the conversation. This is where I find artificial intelligence interesting, where they can be doing things and creating worlds and having conversations with each other without us. Like they don't need us at all to be a part of it. And so, you know, at the moment there's this idea of persistent worlds where you go back, the world sort of keep changing and moving, and that's because players can come in at any time. But I guess, yeah, another step would be that it's transforming itself and that you're coming back and visiting what the algorithm decided to do. Yeah, that's just riffing off his idea, yeah.
I think there are, I mean, if there are, 7 stories in the world, and there are just the stories getting retold again and again and again and again, so yes, absolutely. On the other hand, as long as expand it out to the ecosystem that is the world. What is the world more than a place where things get born and then they live and then they die, and then more? I mean, it's a cycle of story life then. So, yeah.
Cycle. Oh God, I'm going on the pub motif. Something I want to say. I was just thinking that I'm thinking about saving the world and the environmental crisis and the issues that we have there, and you know, there's a strong discourse for a need for actually taking care of the environment and you know, not putting damaging things under the ground or in water, and working out a system that actually doesn't ruin and corrupt what we already have here. And then one day I went to a store and I bought a sponge, you know, just a sponge to use on your skin. And the way it was described was that because these sponges are so rare and that they're being destroyed, rather than using the sponges, they figured out how the sponge works, like, you know, the systems of the molecular structure, and they've mimicked it to create this new thing. And it suddenly struck me then that, you know, on the one hand, yes, we need to actually take care of the planet, but on the other hand, we've also got another path where we're using the planet as these instructions. It's like this toolkit, and that we could, you know, one way we can have a sustainable future is by creating systems that doesn't destroy it, but is inspired by it.
Yo creo... Disculpa.
May I? Well, maybe sometimes all the people who have to do with transmedia things, we're a bit, we do feed ourselves, but I think that we are, well, there are things stemming from it, and the transmedia has to do with social issues and things that have to do with the environment in which we live in. I'm thinking about a case in Colombia. It was a multinational company I'm not allowed to mention here, but there's a small producer that's working. It's a huge oil company, and this oil company is having more and more issues there, because I mean they were sabotaging all the oil ducts that they have got there, but that's very important for the staff in the company. So they're starting to explain this within the company to know which is the role and the meaning of it. So there are different kinds of proposals that have to do with gamification. They're exploring contents, but that are also helping these companies. In this case, it's a big oil company. They allow the workers understand their own role within the system, or even gun production companies, or the role of someone who's making a gun or a bullet that's going to end up in the head of somebody. I mean, that's so. Transmedia content that stem from the mainstream idea, I don't think those movements are, I mean, so closed of this of the academia, or I mean, they're already out there in the real world. Well, you just said something very interesting, Tony, when you were talking about strategies, transmedia strategies. Oh, there's a question here. Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Make it in Spanish?
No, tienen traducción, puedes hacerlo.
Oh, they've got translation. You can speak. I'll speak Spanish then. Okay. Well, hello everybody again. The truth is that my question is really a thought that stems from what Tony just said, but this narrative that are born and they stem from reality. But I'm also interested in cash, in money, how to monetize transmedia, and after what Simmons showed in his own presentation, I mean, transmedia is going to become a tool, a marketing tool. If it's not yet a marketing tool, it's something that brands are starting to think about, because there are clear examples, like Urban Almo. I mean, they're becoming a competitor, a Nike competitor, and they've got a series of videos on YouTube where they didn't talk about success, they talk about failure. They get American athletes that were refused before they were stars, and they give this example as people who work very hard. Obviously, they are trying to create engagement with the brand, and let's take their values, and they do it using storytelling. I was wondering if you had some kind of experience around it. I know Simmons gave us some examples, and if you know that this is going to become just another tool, another marketing tool. Okay, what's your name? Maria Rana. Thank you, Maria. Well, but I was going to tell Tony something that really caught my attention, both in his presentation and Chris's presentation. He talked about transmedia strategies rather than about transmedia content, and Chris this morning talked about how a transmedia team looks like. It's a team with diverse abilities and a shared language, should view the world. So, answering your question, if we understand these both things, transmedia will never be just a tool. because it's a different way of working. That's my opinion, and we'll see what my colleagues here say. But I think that your idea is interesting. Go ahead.
As an example, the Energy Ambassador project that I talked about, we didn't tell a single of the energy companies about the story world that we started to create to be able to build the stories. If we would have gone to them and said that, okay, so this is the brief, we're going to build a transmedia campaign about the people of energy, someone else would have gotten the job. So it's not in all industries, but they were thoroughly thrilled with the end result. So it was a means to an end to not tell them too much. It helped that we went through they had an umbrella organization. They were they were very much more open to transmedia suggestions. But I concur that it's not, in the entertainment industry, transmedia has been used for ages, for the entertainment industry, but still, to engage and especially for marketing purposes. And I think that's going to permeate every other industry as well. Everywhere where there's a story to tell, and you want to reach a certain audience, they are going to be on different platforms. They are going to be on different media, and you need to reach them somehow. So absolutely, but I agree that it's not it's a mindset as well that you take into the development work that you need to have. And as we were speaking here with David, etc., that and Christy was saying, it's really hard to get rid of it once it's stuck there, because then you're like, oh I need to do my Instagram campaign. Yes.
Yo sí que creo, bueno, y en cierto.
I believe, and somehow you can. I think that transmedia can be made a tool, because as I was saying beforehand, everything has to do with storytelling. The objective could be the creation of an identity, the story that we tell, or that we tell ourselves, makes us feel closer or less close to something or some other thing. And brands know about this, and they've done it in traditional advertisement. How to say it? I mean, by repetition, by repeating the message. But now we're in a world in which repetition or repeating the message is blocked by a majority of people, and they find themselves in a place in which, if what I'm saying, which is buy me, if that doesn't work, they start to look at different ways of selling the brand, the values of the brand, what do I represent. And what Simons was saying before about the Maker Studios, the bigger YouTube network in the world, it was bought by Disney recently. I mean, something's going on there. I mean, I manage a multi-channel network, and it's curious to see how these YouTubers, these new creators, are seduced by brands to get involved, to get them involved in some messages, because the language is a lot closer to a specific target audience. So, of course, this is being used as a tool. I think that it's been used for marketing, and I think it's the right strategy. But according to what you say, I mean, you can use the channels, but that's not creating a narrative world with all its advantages and disadvantages and everything, all the things that are involved there. I think that many agencies and brands know very well how to use technology, but I see very little of a small narrative world being created. Well, up to now, that's the case, but we're going back, and now, I mean, TV was born with all branded content. Then advertisement was born, but before that it was the brands who told you a story. It was, well, I got the story, it was hard to link both things, but now, I mean, the Macy's web series created by Maker, I mean, that world is starting to expand, and brands are the producers of content. I mean, it's fictional content, and the brand will be there or not, but there will be a link The next step is to create universes, the different universes around it. I mean, if there's going to be out of a cartoon, we're going to create a toy that is going to be bought in shops. I mean, that's a very short step there. The hard thing is that at some point I'll forget whether that character I'm buying belong to a brand or not. But that's the challenge. But being able to make that character, I mean, that character that was in a TV ad, to be created physically, that's possible, of course. And just a small detail about it, I think that no marketing director, even no film director, can not consider whether the product can work in a transmedia strategy. It should depend on the product and whether or not it is possible to do so. But I think it would be wrong to say, no, I'm going to do this, but no transmedia. I think that cannot be done. I think that that's a luxury you cannot afford, probably. Maybe your transmedia project can only, I mean, maybe this project can only work in 2 or 3 medium, but it's happening in Spain and elsewhere. Some people are saying, I'm going to do transmedia I'm going to do an app, a game. I mean, just like use the whole portfolio. That makes no sense, but that's been done already. And I think that nobody can afford not taking transmedia into consideration. And of course, the marketing guys are going to use it as a tool and as a strategy. I don't think they can afford not taking it into consideration.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today. I think all of the presentations were really interesting. I wanted to focus on a different approach compared to the to this discussion. I want to talk about the social dimension of transmedia. We were focused on funding and about the idea of telling through very different ways, but transmedia can also have a very important social dimension, and we could use it to put social issues on the table. And we've seen this; it's happened, and we've watched, we've seen social issues on TV, on many places, but not on transmedia yet. And this is a new tool we could use in order to make some contents have a larger impact to provoke social change. And this is another function, another way we can use the media. What possibilities do transmedia have and the new storytelling have to empower communities in Latin America? Are there any studies, is there any research done on how social media can change the representability of some groups? I don't have exact data, but I know there is research that has been done, such as the case I mentioned before about Colombia. Once a piece of legislation was passed on regarding their history, the Colombian society and different communities started taking part in that mandate. They started getting involved. They started using innovation in order to take care of social issues. And this happened in different civic platforms and in different places. So there is research, and there is also one example with the production company who did Barret in Valencia, and there we could see such a response, such a social response from the people. And there were also cases regarding the underground system in Valencia, and through the media, all these things, the whole issue, came up to light. this project was really successful and it was extremely interesting. There is a need that triggers that some people use it for social purposes.
Yes, well, Lena, who gave a talk here 2 years ago, the video is online, I'm not sure. It's
afraid
not.
not.
Oh,
I'm afraid
okay. So, yeah, Lena, who was here, she gave a talk about transmedia and, you know, the impact there. There's, in fact, some of the, I think, most interesting stuff recently, you know, in the last couple of years has been coming out of the transmedia documentary space, transmedia activism space. So there is a lot online that you can look at. I can't off the top of my head remember projects based here, but there are a lot that have been winning awards and spoken about and discussed. So if you just search those keywords like transmedia activism and transmedia documentary, you'll find a lot of projects there. And I think a majority of the effort in the last few years has been in that non-fiction area.
Yeah, there's been maybe more non-fiction projects than fiction projects, and transmedia activism is definitely a big thing. I wouldn't know on the top of my head if there's any data available, but I'm sure that there must be.
Well, it's definitely in social media. There's lots of studies on social media.
Hay otro ejemplo también de un proyecto que fue ganador el año pasado y Dani recién nos puede...
Last year there was a project, an award-winning project called Invaders. This project was based on research done by Catalan television channel. It was about snails. It's about a specific sort of snail that it's ruining the whole ecosystem around the Ebro River in northern Spain, and this was a matter of concern for farmers in the area, and it was really pressing for them to solve it. So this is why they came up with the idea of this project that won the award for screenwriters. The trigger was social demand, and from there on, new fiction contents were created thanks to this response. There is a demand and there is also a response in order to sort out the problem. This project was launched by journalists and it went much further. Maybe Danny has something else to say. There was another question over there. Do you have anything else to say? Hello. The interesting thing in that project is that it was really striking the relationship between ludification and the documentary itself. It was a documentary on real things where farmers were finding different ways to eliminate this snail, this type of snail, the apple snail. And there was also some parts of fiction in the same documentary. So there was fictional characters leading the whole story. And that leads myself to a question. Is this an opportunity for creators and narrators? And what should be the new position of that narrators within the new framework? Like on TV, screenwriters are always fighting in order to get more rights. So would screenwriters have a new value? Could they reevaluate? Could they gain value? Well, the creator has a lot of value, has all of the value, all of the merit for this story. The dimension can change with transmedia. From the point of view of content production, for many producers, the missing thing was Like on The Matrix, do you remember The Matrix, the film? I open the door for you, but you are the one who has to enter it. Once you go through the door, then you become aware of the new possibilities. And screenwriters also have different possibilities. They don't change their role. They have their role becomes a little bit different, but they are still the creators of the story. I completely agree, Francisco. Why don't we invest on creators? Why don't we fund creation? Why don't we support it somehow? Because we, the screenwriters, always have the feeling that we are the starting point of the value chain, and we never have anything. We never have a say. It's true that someone has to support and defend and fight for creation. In TV, the TV writer is more highly regarded, and you've got your showrunner there, and in gaming, the writer is right down there. But yeah, it is transforming. I think in the first wave of transmedia, if you like, the producer was the primary role that everyone spoke about, and said we need to have producers, and we're seeing more and more people that are working in the transmedia and the interactive space, role writers and designers that are highly regarded. To me, the thing that I'm seeing is writers who can actually be who can be a narrative designer, sort of overseeing the whole lot and talking with different departments. And then there are other writers that are, under them. And so having that skill of being able to talk to the different art forms, more of a creative lead, if you like, and understanding how you're communicating the important things via the different modes, not just, via the text. There seems to be a privileging and an interest in that role. So that's what I see at the moment. Yeah.
Sí.
Yes. Well, there are some brands and visionaries who have used stories in order to move people so they can remember those stories. Visions have different ways to become real. They can do so through actions or through plastic language, through artistic language. And one example would be Ai Weiwei, who's an artist from China, doing documentaries and stories and many different aspects. So I wonder, actions are remembered much better than stories, and action seems to have seem to be more powerful in terms of narration. Do you think that action or the ability to narrate of actions is underused? Do you think we could use this ability to improve narration? Because at the end of the day, we see lots of memes online, and they don't have any contents behind, but they are widespread by a community. So my question is, aren't we leaving aside some aspects of the narration that we could use in order to improve the story?
No, sorry. Honestly, are you sure that it's the actions that are remembered and not the stories about the actions? No.
Play is a big thing.
Sorry?
Learning via play.
Yeah.
Is
But I told we have some people who are much better at alternate reality games, for instance, where you have a physical action as part of a narrative. I've done very little in that space, but there are other people who can talk more about that. But yes, absolutely, there are. If you can activate your audience in a physical way as well, then those stories will permeate all the much better. That's why we try to use geocaching in our Ristinomi project to have the physical aspect as well as the knowledge aspect and the searching for caches aspect. And what did I miss in your question now?
I meant the value of an experience. An activity, a physical activity, creates experiences, and that has to do with gamification, and that has to do with what YouTubers do before connecting to their audience. This is not just about a conversation and a debate. It's about a different language, and sometimes you do share things with all the users. I'm talking about contagious experiences or collective experiences. Yes, we do talk about that as well. Much of this has to do with what we are experiencing and with getting involved with that experience. There are different elements hand in hand with these activities, and they are a key aspect that doesn't always make sense, but it often does. And it does for YouTubers, of course. YouTubers need to rely on their experience beyond that medium. They need to rely on the cooperation and interaction with their fans and with other YouTubers and with other things. So this is part of what they represent. This is what we are talking about. We are talking about new possibilities for the physical experience that could add up to narration. So, like Paco said, not all of Transmedia is part of narration or narrates. Many Transmedia projects are based on physical experiences, such as theater, plays, and other things. And at the end of the day, it's just like Simon says, we tend to remember experiences, or we tend to remember the things we tell each other about our experiences. This is not just about telling stories as a brand or as a producer or as a writer. The audience also tells stories, and this has changed over the past few years. There is both ways debate, both ways conversation. It is not just about me telling you about my experience. I also ask about yours, and I want to hear about it. I have a double or triple role. I am on Twitter. I'm a organizer. I do everything. I could also serve coffee if you allowed me to. But there are two things I want to say. Firstly, if you want to keep talking about what Jose Ignacio said, you can do it on Twitter. Another thing is that, going back to the social issue, we're going to discuss this more in depth. So please do come on Friday. We have a question on Twitter by Alejandro Ángel Torres. He would like to know your opinion, everyone's, on the impact of open licenses and Creative Commons on transmedia projects. I think we don't have any more time, any time for. I think we have no time for other questions. This is going to be the last one. But Andreu is going to be here on Friday, and he will be able to answer this question. Well, he's asking that himself, and he wants some answers.
It's a very, very good thing. It helps create stuff, and it helps produce stuff, and it helps me talking with other people who can help us achieve what we want to achieve. In the end, it might be that we have a more difficult time protecting the IP, but it's very seldom that you can take a transmedia concept or a project and sell it as is. You can tell you don't sell the ready-made tapes of your transmedia campaign as for old television shows, etc. So I see mostly positive things about that. Yeah.
I guess for me, I don't need this to talk. For me, technologically, it's on the level of being able to share. To share my code to enable other people to create these sorts of projects themselves. So for my web audio adventure style, in which you narrate across the web, I'm releasing that code so anyone can create their own, and that it's the idea behind that is that. It's not about me being the only one that has done it. I hope to provide a technological answer, a design solution to a problem out there, and for other people to be able to use it and then create their own interesting works in different ways. So I think in the end we don't become the full stop of a innovative format. Or product or approach, and that we can do what we want, experiment with it, and then share that for others to then keep furthering their experimentation. I think that's also the other side of the coin, I think, to that process.
Yo quería añadir, perdón. No, sin duda.
From the creator's point of view, this is something that can add to creation, and it can help promote and boost creation. Homer must have thought that all of his work was Creative Commons, but Homer lived way before the concept was created. So, well, he talked about cosmonauts. Homer did. So it's weird that they didn't have the word back then. But we did it. We wanted the commons so more creators could participate in the project, and it's a very interesting thing having them. I think it is going to happen. It's unstoppable, and it's part of the creating procedures, and it's just unavoidable, and it's something we need as well. In Bogota, where this question was launched from, many transmedia projects are being developed based on their own needs and based on the opportunities they have the technological opportunities they have to do it. And this has been very successful.
Just not a conclusion to the whole. No, just that I feel I had a discussion with some people in Croatia a couple of weeks back that copyright absolutely needs to change. The laws of copyright are outdated and they become more outdated by the minute. So in that sense, Creative Commons, etc., is the right way to go. Yeah.
There's a lot of economics bound up in copyright.
Absolutely. So it's going to be easy.
So, thank you very much. Muchas gracias. It's 2:06. Sorry, Rosa. Vamos todos a comer.
Let's go for lunch. And if you want to come back here at 4 p.m., we are going to have some storytelling workshops. Thank you very much.